Hey, everybody, welcome back to yet another incredible guest that we have on for you today. This is going to be the most amazing show because I actually know this woman. I'm not going to say the word intimately, but intimately. You know those friends that you have in your life that you know things that you've always wanted to say on air? No, I'm kidding. Caroline, I know that we both know Surya, and she's amazing, and she's going to be giving us. Do you want to stay in the show? She's going to be giving us some stuff that people actually have to go and book time with her to have her do this for them. She's got some treats for us today, but this woman is one of the most incredible singers. And when I first met her, I met her in the world of holistic medicine, and she's an amazing healer. And then honestly, I was having an open house at the studio, and she thought she would do a Fleetwood Mac song for me as a gift, her and her guitar. And it was mind blowing. And then she put her, I don't know if it was her first CD, I'm sure not, into my hand. And I started using this music with my clients, and it was blowing them away in terms of healing. And I know I'm telling a little bit of stories about her and going into it, but it makes me, music is such an amazing part of both of our lives. And I'm just wondering, Caroline, what song do you sing in the shower the most?
Well, before going there, I find it interesting that you think that the interview will be about that, because their real subject is we're going to ask Surya everything about you. No, just joking. It's funny because these days it's Taylor Swift. I know she's young. She's not my generation at all. But my daughter used to sing her songs and love her. And, I had a one-on-one trip with my older daughter. We went to Toronto to watch Taylor. And then I had the same experience 7 years later with my younger daughter. We went to see Taylor Swift in Toronto, and then the whole family, we went to see her. Even my son was crazy for her. So I think it brings me back a bit of all this, my kids' youth, but I also think she's a very mature, her lyrics are great. And it brings back a part of my teenagehood. So it's good. But besides that, I really love Coldplay these days. I know that you sing in the shower because I have had the privilege of hearing it. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't had that privilege, you're lucky. But what's your favorite songs to sing, Deb?
Oh man, so you know what? That's such a tough question for me because I'm kind of all over the map. I think the ones that if I was going on a desert island and I had to only take, I always say to people, you had to take 3 albums with you. I mean, the first one I would take is Janis Joplin's Greatest Hits. I'm a huge Fleetwood Mac, but also I think the 2 things that people don't know about me, maybe, is that I absolutely was raised on Glenn Campbell, and I have such a heart for country music. And honestly, I could listen to opera all day, every day. So I'm kind of a little extreme in that. I love everything in between. But I find that music, like you, right, it kind of brings memories. And, my son's totally into that, to hip hop and rap. And so I started to kind of get into that and listen and appreciate it. I think, learning to appreciate different kinds of music. But I'm kind of like a box of Cracker Jacks. I mean, really, this morning, it was kind of, hip hop, and yesterday it was, Keith Urban, and I'm kind of all over the place. I don't know if I have a particular favorite, but I love concerts. I will fly anywhere to go see anybody, anytime. I love music, right? So
I know one of the greatest one, I saw many good ones, but one of the ones that I absolutely loved was Eminem in New York with my son, because it was such a unique experience. My son was 16 or 17, and then my nephew lived here as well. He was about 22. And then there was me, 40 something. We did the road trip to go to New York and all go see an artist that we all loved. And none of us were in the same generation, basically. So it was pretty cool. It was a great experience. And that's probably, that's one of the best that I've seen. But you're right, that music really moves emotions and, brings back a lot of, for me, it actually brings back positive emotions. Like if I'm listening to Eminem now. I usually listen to him before a soccer game because it pumps me. But I feel like invincible again. I feel a teenager again. I feel like, whoa, it's so cool to be at that concert with my kid, you know? So yeah.
Well, I think one of the most, as someone who spent a lot of years doing holistic work with people, music was such a catalyst for people to let go and to be healed by the vibration of sound. And whether it's singing, whether it's toning, whether it's, and honestly, at this point, we just need to pass it over to the artist herself. And so I want to bring you into this show, Surya. And I mean, I've been such a fan of yours for a long time, and I know that Caroline has too. And you've healed so many, so many, so many people. But maybe tell us a little bit about your relationship with music, because it's one thing that we get to benefit from people like you that help heal, but what's it like to be a singer? What's it like to be known to, stand on stage and kind of belt it out and have people moved by your music?
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much for having me here, by the way, both of you. I'm thrilled to be here. And that's a good question. And, it's like a lot of things, and it's a double-edged sword. And I think, people always say to me, I want to be a singer. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because it's not an easy path, just like the path of being a healer. Sometimes it's really great and it's really rewarding and it's really nice when people appreciate what you do. And thank you for your kind words about the music. And I've gotten many like beautiful, beautiful messages from people over the years, like complete strangers telling me about like healings and miracles that happen because of the music. So that is beautiful and it touches my heart. And I think all artists, like, we're a little bit kooky, we're kind of complex and we go through a lot, and there's a lot of, creations, like some of them get heard, some of them don't get heard, some of them don't get finished. I think there's a lot of struggle inside of artistry in general. So it's interesting to also, be making music and couple that with being a healer and then having tools around, how to deal with all of these different things that come up. So I feel very fortunate in that I have tools, but, there's also, it's a wonderful feeling to sing. And I really encourage people to sing. Singing in the shower is great. You don't have to be a singer, quote unquote, to sing. I feel like everybody has a voice and we can all learn to sing, whether we're a great singer or not. It's about like harnessing that authentic expression and letting the voice that's inside of us free. It just sounds better with some people than it does with others, right?
We'll talk about that. I mean, here's the interesting thing. Knowing you, I mean, there's this amazing singer, right? You're this amazing creative. And then you chose to step out and up, which is a really big deal to make it part of your business. It's one thing to be a singer, and it's one thing to enjoy passion and maybe, cut an album or so, or sing to your family. Like I always say, I used to always sing to my babies. I mean, my kids know how I sing. But so when you take that business part of it and turn it into your life's work where it's actually supporting you, that's a little bit different, right?
It is. And I'm very fortunate that the music that I create is a little bit more niche ish. And the niche is, and it goes along with what I'm doing with the healing music. So it kind of works together, and also it motivates me because I know that people need that. They need the music. They need that healing. So to me it feels good, and they naturally integrate. But for a long time, I tried to separate them, and I actually didn't really understand how I could do both and be both. And then I realized that I had to integrate them both together for a lot of reasons. And one of them being like, it's just easier. I didn't want to have all of these different brands, and I didn't want to be separate because I'm all of those things. And again, they all sort of work together. The healing music works with the healing. And I totally agree with you. Music, even for myself, hearing other people's music, like music is such a deep catalyst for healing. So whoever's listening to this, even the music that you choose to listen to throughout the day has such a big effect on you. If you're listening to really negative music or low vibrational frequency sounds, like that is not going to improve your mood. If you need calming, if you need relaxing, if you need energizing, like choose music that uplifts you, because it literally like changes the cellular composition of our body. It can take us, I think we've all experienced this, right? Like you're in a bad mood, you put on your favorite song, you maybe do a little dance, and then all of a sudden you feel great again. Like this is the power of music. It's profound. It can shift us just like that. So yeah, music is powerful. So I'm grateful to be able to be a musician, and also it's, it doesn't come without its challenges.
I love that, you decided to really take your passion and you also made it a career, because I remember when I was young, I wanted to be a singer so bad. And my mom was like, Carolyn, like, we're poor enough. We're not going to invest money in your voice. Did you hear it? And I was just like, oh. So I was always shy to sing. And my mom was a great mom. It's just like, she didn't realize that she was, saying this really. But it was also like, don't go in that field because you will starve your whole life. So I feel like a lot of people went into that field if they were so gifted that they couldn't actually like hide it. But you actually took your voice and you decided, hey, I'm doing something else with it, not just the concerts and everything. Because it's so true what you're saying, that it does change your vibration. And I experienced it like last week. I was in a really, really good mood. And I have this playlist. And then on this playlist, there's this old song from Heart, Alone, that I used to listen in the 80s or something like that. And I went all like, wow, I lost my energy because I went back into the song. Not that it's a bad song, it's just, it brought back like, we used to break up with a boyfriend and play this song over and over and over again. So it really brought me back there. But, and I was just sharing that as a side note to say it's so true that it will put you in a different mood. But really, at what point did you decided, I'm taking this and starting a business with it? Because there's a big jump into starting a business with it and wanting to, because it's not only I'm trying to say it's not only the creative part anymore. It's like you have to have the businesswoman part in you as well. So how was that transition for you?
That's a very good question. And for me, like I have a very interesting journey with music and singing, where there was about an 8-year period starting when I was a teenager where I actually like renounced my creativity and my voice, and I didn't sing a note for 8 years. And I said, I'm never going to be a singer. I'm never going to sing, all of these things. And that's when I started studying the healing arts. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to be a healer. That's my thing. And then I got to this place where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die if I don't sing. Like that's how strong it was in me. And I think any artist, or you don't even have to be an artist. It's like whatever your passion is, whatever your purpose is, it will chase you, it will find you, it will hunt you down until you say yes to it, right? So it's almost like you don't have a choice, It's like, or you do have a choice, but the other choice is like being completely miserable and living a very unfulfilled life. So it's definitely been a journey and a balancing act. And I actually feel very grateful that I do have some business skills and some admin skills. And I actually have the ability to manage myself, which a lot of artists do not. I see this all the time. And like, I have friends who are wonderful artists and incredible musicians, but they can't keep a calendar to save their lives. They can't book their own shows. They just can't. They're not capable of it. But this is also why we need creative people, need people who are gifted in like admin. They need people who are gifted in business. So it all works together. But as far as like integrating it, again, I'm fortunate because they kind of work together. And I realized like, oh, and because people would tell me like, Deb, they listen to my music while they're doing sessions, like other healers. A friend of mine just called me the other day and she was so excited. She's like, oh my gosh, I got a whole download after listening to your music, and I'm gonna, for a new program that I'm doing, and your music is going to be a part of my program. And I was like, okay, great, because I guess she got a big activation in listening to it. So it's just, it's always a balancing act though. And it's hard because, it's like the right and left side of the brain. It's like the creative part always wants to just create and do things. And then yet like in the practical world, in the 3D world, like, okay, there's certain actions that you have to take in order for people to actually hear you and, buy from you and all those types of things. So that is that continues to this day. It's always an ongoing thing. But I've had there's actually a lot of really great, there's never been a better time to be an independent artist than right now, because of technology, because of the internet, because you can, back in the day, we were dependent on record labels. If you didn't have a record label, you're screwed, that's it. You can't do anything. But now there's people out there making 6 and 7 figures, amazing money for themselves as independent artists. And so where I'm very lucky, and what I'm always told whenever I work with other musicians or, people in business, is that I have a very specific sort of niche. So because my music is very unique and specific, I kind of that it's a little bit easier for me to share than perhaps, if I was just another pop star or just another rapper. And I'm not trying to, put down anyone in those genres, but the reality is there's a lot more competition in those areas. And a lot of that stuff ends up sounding very sort of generalized. So people don't want to hear it. They're like, oh, I've heard this already. So when you're doing something different, I think whether it's music or anything in business, I think that's the thing that it can be challenging because it can be hard for people to understand what you're doing at first. But then after a while, once you establish yourself, then you can really stand out because you're doing something different, right?
Well, and what I love, it's like, we've all talked about, we kind of made a joke about the shower, but everyone sings in their shower and everyone sings in their car. And even if you know that you're not good, and I'm sure your dog's howled or kids have said, can you please stop? My son did not, my daughter ended up going and singing opera, ironically. She's an amazing singer when it comes to, yeah, I didn't know that, right? So she sung with the Vancouver Voices, and first concert I ever saw, I'm like, this is Tchaikovsky. How did my kid ever learn Tchaikovsky? So anyways, the point being is that when we're all doing what we're doing, whether it's good or whether it's bad, we feel good. And what I know is because I know you and I know a little bit about the chakras, and, Caroline's becoming an expert on the chakras, right? Dragging her into this world. When you sing, share with us what's really happening for people. Because what you've done is you sing, you inspire people with your music. We use music to help heal ourselves, whether it's Taylor Swift or, Eminem or, Glenn Campbell, whatever it is, we feel better. But we always feel really good when we're able to use our own voice. And so you're taking your skills as an artist and encouraging people to use their own voice. And it's so cool for you to make that program because, and I want you to talk about that, because not all of us are going to do what you do, but all of us need to find our voice, right? You find the passion, you find the voice, you find the passion, you start making your way. And we need to be our own advocates in our lives, in our relationships, as parents, as spouses, as children, what have you. Can you tell us, like, how did you come up with that idea and what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a lot there. And also I just want to say, you don't just know a little bit about the chakras. How many chakra clearing sessions have you done on people? Probably like 5,000 over the last 25 or 30 years. I just want to clarify that, everybody. She's very knowledgeable about chakras. But yeah, so the throat chakra is where, the voice, everything to do with the voice is living. And, the chakras, just in case anyone doesn't know, they're the major energy centers in the body. And it's like the blue chakra, like you said earlier, like usually it's the color blue or associated with that color. So I'm just feeling guided to tell this story. Like when I was in India, I was studying Indian classical music, and I sang this one song in the language of the province that I was staying in. And everywhere I would go, my teacher would tell everyone, oh, listen, here's my student from Canada, listen to her sing this song. So as soon as I started singing this song, which was a very well-known song, everybody knew, all of the people there would just break into song with me and sing along. And I noticed that they would sing whether they were good or not. Like I had some sing-alongs with some, Indian men that were the most terrible singers I've ever heard. But I'm not judging them because they sang from their heart. They were connected. They sang regardless of whether or not they were a good singer. And this really touched me, and it really made me think, because my experience of being here in Canada is, we're a little polite. We're a little shut down. We're a little it's like the joke about us Canadians is like, sorry is our favorite word. We're just very not rock the boat kind of people in a lot of ways, right? And so what I hear here from people all the time is, I can't sing. I can't sing. And I always say to people, you have a voice, you can sing. You might not be a great singer. It might not be your destiny to sing on a stage in front of people, but you still have that mechanism inside of you. And I tell people that your voice is one of your superpowers. Your voice is how you can get things done in the world. How are you going to do business with people? How are you going to sell your products? How are you going to let people know who you are and what you need and all of these things if you don't have a voice? Now, so many of us are cut off from our voice because of the messages that we received when we were younger. Even think about it, children should be seen and not heard. We are taught in the system that obedience means staying quiet and listening to people, and that makes us good. And when we speak up, when we talk out of turn, or when we confront somebody or challenge them or an authority figure, that makes us bad. So all of this goes into our programming. And also what I learned from starting this work was every single culture has some version tradition of like toss it under the rug and don't talk about it. Like every culture has this, like in different ways. It's very predominant in white culture. You know, I have a lot of friends who grew up in an Indian family. Like the more people that I talk to from all over the world, I realized that this is a thing everywhere. And then I kind of got these downloads doing the course. Like when I was creating the course, of course, like how it works when you're working in that, you learn so much more. So what I was shown is that the expansion and the opening of the throat chakra is the next step for humanity, because so many of us are working on and have moved into living from the heart. Okay. Like we're talking about the chakras, right? So the lower three chakras are really about like, you know, survival in the world and really kind of base level stuff. And you can see how the world is all set up on this, like desire, power and control, survival, like these things. So now we're trying to move up into the heart where we can like really be in a space of love and express unconditional love for humanity. Well, above that is this, is the throat, is our ability to speak for ourselves and tell people what we need. And so many of us cannot do that. And so that's both in speaking, and that also is in singing. So I think it's really important for everyone to sing, whether you're a good singer or not. And that might just mean like you sing in the shower, like you, or, you know, singing to your children, like you said, is the perfect example. How many children grew up listening to their mother sing, not having any idea that their mother was not the best singer? They don't care. They just hear, I'm not saying that was the case with your kids, but you know, like this is the thing, right? The children don't care. They just hear the soothing sound of their mother's voices. And I've seen this a lot. I've heard mothers singing to their children that don't have the most wonderful voice, but the emotion and the love that comes through their voice in that moment when they sing to their child, it's felt, it's heard. So it's so important for us to learn to communicate, especially for women. This is a big thing for women, even more so, because women especially have been silenced so much. We have been, you know, there's so many things. There's a connection between, there's a deep connection between the second chakra and the fifth chakra. So for women, you know, the second chakra, I mean, for everyone, but for women, you know, there's a lot going on there because that's where the womb is. That's where all of our female parts, the ovaries are. And there's a lot of, you know, anytime that we said no and our desires weren't respected, anytime, like there's a lot of shutdown there. So it's really important for women, especially to find their voice as well. So I kind of circled around there. I get really passionate when I talk about this, but yeah.
That's so interesting. I want to ask you, is there like, because of course Deb like did, you know, thousands of treatments and she knows her chakra, which makes me wonder when we travel, maybe she messes up all my chakra on purpose, like, you know, being like, haha. So I'll be careful next time we're traveling soon. But for someone like me, who's like true beginner in that, because I had a Reiki treatment about 2 weeks ago, and she's like, your throat chakra is really cold. And I was just like, oh, you know, not knowing what she meant. And she's like, well, it's because it's not activated enough and it's not open enough, which is so ironic. You know, we have the podcast and I always speak my opinion, or I do think so. But listening to you, there's little lights that turn on. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. But for someone who's really beginner at this, what's the first step to even, you know, work on your throat chakra or on any chakra? But let's stay specific with the throat chakra because it's your specialty. How can someone start?
So that's a really great question. And it's funny because I had a similar experience recently. I have a Chinese medicine practitioner and he has this pendulum that he uses and he's like, can I pendulum your chakras? And I said, okay. And he's like, oh, your throat chakra is complete. Like he said, your throat chakra is totally imbalanced. And he's like, why? I don't get it. You're a singer. You do all this stuff. And I just laughed and I said, well, we all teach what we have to work on. So the throat chakra is complex. We can be able to express ourselves in some ways, and then there can be all of these layers of things that are hiding in there. And sometimes, actually, often I can actually hear it in people. So a few basic steps for unblocking the throat chakra. First of all, just give yourself permission to make some noise somewhere. The car is a great place. Okay. If you have a car, you can make crazy sounds in the car, and just giving yourself the freedom to make sounds is really profound. And actually it's funny, Deb, I remember the very first time I met you, even before we knew each other, was you were the trainer in my bodywork training, like a gazillion million years ago, probably 20 years ago, at the Healing Bodywork Center. And you and somebody else were talking about tension in the jaw and how tension in the jaw can like cause all these problems and like yada, yada, yada. So the jaw is intricately connected to the throat chakra. And the reason so many of us have jaw pain, every time we didn't say something that we wanted to say, every time we didn't scream when we wanted to scream, all of these things get locked up in here. So what I like to tell people, so first of all, find some space and time to let yourself make noise. And I always say, I wish there were more places in this world where we could go and scream and yell, because it's so necessary. It's such a cathartic, powerful way to get out a lot of the energy that we hold in our body. And sometimes in the moment, we're not able to make that sound or scream or yell. We have to stay quiet for whatever reason, but that all gets locked up in the body. So number one, find yourself somewhere that you can actually give yourself permission to make noise, and like literally make noise, make sounds, even if they sound strange. Just trust yourself, scream, yell. You can do it in the bathtub too, if you don't, live with people, or, it's not going to bother your neighbors, or they're going to call the police because they think you're dying or something. Like the bathtub is great too. Number two is become an observer of your voice. I think a lot of us are familiar with this observing your mind thing that we talk about in yoga and meditation. Okay, observe your mind, observe your voice, observe how you speak in different situations, because what's really interesting is that we change our voices depending on who we're talking to. Now, women are classic for this. It's like, you're like yelling at your kids, all of a sudden the phone rings, you're like, hello, oh, hi, everything's great. Like we all do this, or like we're so angry and we're like, I want to kill you inside. And then we're like, oh yeah, everything's fine. Like these are all examples of things that we do that block that, because there's a disconnect. It's not authentic. Of course, sometimes we have to do this, but if it's something that we're doing all the time, that's definitely part of it. And then also I invite people to do some journaling. Writing is always really powerful to get some of the things that are living in our subconscious out. Do some journaling about the messages that you received growing up about your voice. For example, I even had to get through this as a singer. I had this one experience with a boy that I had a crush on when I was in high school, and he made this derogatory comment to me when I was singing, like, oh, you're singing, girls always sing, I don't like hearing girls sing. And I carried that with me for so long. Like it made me shut down and not want to sing. Maybe somebody told you were not a good singer when you were younger. Maybe people didn't listen to you. I have another friend and she has this raspy voice, and I always say to her, that's not your real voice. And I asked her, what was your childhood like? I was like, did people listen to you growing up? She said, no, I was the youngest and my voice always got drowned out. So I was never heard. So I had to like literally scream to be heard. And now her voice has a permanent raspiness to this. And so the really interesting thing about this work is when you heal and open and kind of shift your throat chakra, your voice will actually change. And it's very interesting. And for me, I know that like myself, Deb knows me really well. I can be a little like, spinny and like all over the place. And so when I'm spinning, I talk really fast, I talk really high, and I observe this in myself. I'm like, when I'm grounded, my voice drops, it drops deep into my belly. I slow down. And it's like it commands presence from people. And I have to remember that sometimes. And we all have that. So start to observe yourself in your everyday conversations, and then watch who you speak differently to. And this is normal. You would speak differently to a 3-year-old child than you would to your like, your partner or your business coach or whatever. Like this is different, but it's really observe yourself, because it's very interesting how we will change our voice around to get what we want or get what we need in any moment. It's fascinating.
That is fascinating. You're giving me lots to think about, even from someone who's worked on the chakras. I think that culturally, we've been told many different ways to act and behave, and our voice has been such a conductor in that area. I mean, it's like what we say, what we don't say. Oh, you curse, you don't curse, or, all of that is just so incredibly, it can close you down. It can take you from being really strong and really powerful in no matter what area. It's just so multi-layered, right? So you have this program that helps people I mean, not only do you sing and, you know, people can tap into you that way, and your latest song was incredible, and I'm sure you're going to share that with people. But so you have this program that I'm assuming people are kind of doing on their own. You're working with them on their own, and they do these experiences. So I haven't done it. I mean, I've done lots of work. I mean, you know, I have the blessing of being in the same city with this woman. So we've done lots of work on each other, massage on each other, and what have you. And I know the elation that comes from having a session with you, because it feels freeing. And the interesting thing is, it feels freeing. All of a sudden, I feel way better. I mean, I do a lot around business, right? So I feel stronger in business. I feel able to go ask for a sale or talk to somebody in a different way or a more profound way than I did before your treatment. Can you share some of the experiences that people, like some of the benefits? Because people will be like, wow, that sounds really cool, but okay, like, what does it make people feel? Like, how does it play out in their life? Like, what's the benefit?
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. Well, the thing is, when we unblock our creative expression, it's very empowering, because even just to be able to ask what we want for what we want, so many people won't even ask for what they want. And women are like this. Women are famous for this. You know, it's like women are, you know, we are generally very giving, and we're not very good at receiving, right? So we will be really good at, you know, maybe putting things out, but not very good at taking them in. But, you know, this has helped people have confidence to sing, have confidence to speak, really to step into their, I mean, even if you're a teacher or a leader or anything like that, I mean, public speaking plays into almost everything that you can imagine too. Like in business, if you're an author, anything, like you're probably going to have to learn to communicate at some point, whatever you're doing. So this work has really helped people. It's helped some people find the confidence to sing, which is awesome. I love that. That's a big passion of mine. And again, even if they're good or not, but it can really help you. It really connects everything, because once you can really start to learn to ask for what you need and what you want and express yourself authentically without fear, you know, to be able to just say, hey, this is what I want, or this is what I believe. I know for me, because of some of my experiences growing up, it's like, especially with certain people, I will shut right down and be very afraid, or I was anyway. It's something that's like I've overcome pretty much. But, you know, there was a lot of times where I didn't feel comfortable singing, or I didn't feel comfortable speaking up. And that was like, I would go like this. And I see a lot of people doing this. So when you're able to harness that energy and learn to ask for what you want, it's miraculous. And then things like, you will hear the voice change. You will hear somebody's voice change. Like you will hear their singing change a little bit. You can hear their speaking change. It's a real alignment here. And, you know, since we're talking about the chakras, they all work together. It's not like you can just have one balanced chakra and like off you go. Like, no, they're all interconnected. So they're feeding off of one another. So ultimately, you know, and we're going throughout the day, we're having all kinds of variations in our energy depending on what's going on, but we want to try to keep them all balanced. So balancing the throat chakra is part of kind of encompassing the whole. But I just think so many of us growing up have received these messages around, you know, shutting down. It's not safe to speak. It's better just to kind of obey and not question things. And I think that is, you know, when you're able to claim that, my gosh, like that's huge. There's so many people who go through their whole life never asking for what they want. And, you know, I think it's a quote by Madonna. She said, the reason why so many people don't get what they want is because they don't ask for it. Like, it's so simple. But when there's all of this fear there, and it can be terror, like it can be, what's that word? Debilitating. I know for me at a time, it was like that. I felt like I was going to die if I sang, and I felt like I was going to die if I didn't sing. Like, that's how intense it was. So there's a lot here. And I don't know about you, but I actually feel a lot here. Like, I feel energy moving here. I feel like other people, you know, if in a past or anything like that, you know, if anything ever happened, injury in the neck, anything like this, anytime you've been cut off, like that's all held there in the muscle memory. So it needs to be released and healed in order for people to have authentic expression.
I love what you just said. And it's so true. You know, as I'm hearing you talk, it's so true that we've been told so many things, because I'm trying to be cool with my kids. So there's stuff that I was raised with, like, don't say that, you never say that. Or if ever you would say a word, it was like everyone's eyes would turn like, oh, he said that. And it was not even big words or swearing. And now my kids, like, they're all in their teenager years or adults. So they make a point to say all these words. And there's always my little voice, like the little girl in me, that is like, oh, they said that, but I always have to be conscious of like, don't react, it's okay, because I don't want them to necessarily grow up with these, you know, these blocks. They will have their own blocks. They'll find them, I'm giving them more, but for these I'm being careful. So it's amazing. And I love what we do on this podcast, because we actually take, you know, there's a bunch of different ways of healing someone, and what I'm realizing is how much I don't know, because you know, I learn so much every time, and healers will heal different parts of you. And now I'm like, chakras, of course, it makes so much sense. It's the base of you and everything. So it's amazing. So you have this program, Voice for Love, and you actually have a podcast as well, Voice for Love. Where can people find your program, and where can they listen to your podcast?
Okay, so the podcast is available on all the major streaming program platforms, just like yours, you know, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the things. So you can just search A Voice for Love and you can find that there. And then everything else you can just find on my website, which is suryadeviworld.com. I don't know if it'll be written there somewhere, and that's also my handle on all the social media as well, is Surya Devi World. And I'm the most active on Instagram, and I share there almost daily, and I share lots of different little snippets and tidbits. And yeah, like what you said, I mean, this is so funny. And I mean, I can say this is the humbling thing about healing, is when you realize that it's never ending. There's always more to know. There's always more to do. And I remember when I was younger, I used to kind of foolishly think that I was going to hit this point in my life and I was going to be healed and everything was going to be great. And now I'm like, you know, more than 2 decades into my spiritual and healing journey. And I'm just like, no, it's just layers, right? So there, and, you know, if you're aligned, then all the right pieces will be revealed to you at the right time. You'll get what you need, because everybody needs something different. Maybe somebody isn't so blocked in their throat chakra and they need, you know, help unblocking their third eye, or vice versa. You know, it's a little different. So it's just trusting in what you need.
And I think that one big thing that happens with time as well is, as you grow and as you start tapping in all of that, you also start realizing that you'll never be perfect. There's always something to work on. So it becomes just, because I had the same magic thought as you, like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then, you know what, it's all going to be good. Or I'm going to do this therapy, and yes, then I'm clean. But the more you learn, the more you realize, I don't know. And I think it's when you grow, you can start feeling this way, because you actually accept as well that, you know, there's always people knowing more than you that can bring you something to make you better, because we can always be better than our version from yesterday. So on that, I will say thank you so much for being here, Surya, and I will let Deb and yourself close the show, but mainly Deb, because she really has this thing. She wants the last word. So I'll let her have this last word.
Yeah, we haven't thrown too many pots. One, you know, if I could ask one last thing, because, you know, what I think you just described is when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and when the teacher's ready, the student appears, right? I always say it like that. Your whole work is about getting people to the next level. Your whole work is about opening people up, getting them to stand in their power, getting them to stand in their position. And I've watched you, right? When we've known each other for decades now, and I've seen you grow and you've seen me grow. And as you grow, your vibration changes and you attract different people and different lessons and different learnings. You know, I know that you're going to close out the show and then I'll tell people how to get a hold of us. But as someone who's gone through those levels, you've had to stand on stage, what would the advice be? Because a lot of people that are watching our show are entrepreneurs and lifepreneurs, and they're wanting to get to that next level. And sometimes that can be lonely. Sometimes you'll have people that will support you. Sometimes, surprisingly, people won't be able to meet you at that place. But you want to keep growing, you want to keep going. So for someone who actually takes people through that process, which you want to have someone like you behind you, going through that process, what would your advice be, or what's your experience been when you're going through that process? You want to get to that next level, but it can be scary because not everyone's back in your play the way you thought they did, or it's uncharted territory. Like, I just really want to finish that off for people, because you're a mover and a shaker. But when I met you 20 years ago, you were making your way. So now that you've arrived, and honestly, you're like, I remember you're like, we're goddesses now, like the world's got to treat us like a goddess. We got to ask the world to treat us like a goddess. And so it takes a while to even be able to make that statement and not like, so can you give us some advice on that? Because that's a gift you got.
Oh, thank you. I think it just comes back to this thing of like what other people think of me is like none of my business. And I think it's like really we all have to get to this place of knowing that what we're meant to do, whatever that is, whatever our calling is, and this may change multiple times throughout the course of our lifetime, but once we hear that calling and we know that mission, we have to follow it regardless if people support us or not. Of course, it's nice to be supported and to feel like people have your back, but my experience is sometimes the more successful, the more light you have, people will actually not support you. They will get triggered by you, or they will turn on you, or, ignore you or steal from you. All of these things. I've experienced all of this, and it's been, really heartbreaking and also really good learning, and also just kind of got me to this place of like, well, I know what I'm doing. I know what I got to do for me. And I don't really care what anyone else thinks, unless you're like directly in my life and affecting my day to day, then it doesn't really matter. So I think it helps us to develop thick skin. And I think there's always different ways of looking at things. So we can always take our challenges and make them into our gold. In fact, I think that's what really successful people do. We learn from our mistakes. We learn from our challenges. We don't just, and like you said, Caroline, like I know nothing. That is the most profound thing anyone can say. Once you think you know everything. I was just explaining this to my 5-year-old son the other day because he's like, I know everything. I'm like, don't ever say that, because the minute you think you know everything, you just lost it. You just lost it. You always have to keep an open door for that which you don't know. As soon as we think that we know everything, we've just cut ourselves off from literally a billion possibilities of what could be. So I think it's just the invitation is always to, and that comes from being able to check into your guidance, which is another thing that I'm very passionate about and helping people learn about, is really tuning in every day and every moment, really, and really like knowing for yourself, okay, what am I meant to do? And if you do what your heart is telling you to do, what you are being divinely guided to do, who cares? Like if somebody else doesn't like it, that's fine. And actually it's just human behavior. Look at celebrities, they get a lot of love and they get a lot of hate. They kind of go together, but they also are doing what they're doing and they're just living their lives and they carry on. And that's what we have to learn how to do as well. So I think it's I think knowing that comes with the territory. I think for me, I used to think that, I was going to be like all this and that one day and everybody was going to love me. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't have any enemies. I'm pretty lucky, but I've also experienced all of these things and still do. And I feel it as well, because sometimes, you have little creepers, you have little haters, but that actually just means that you're doing something. A lot of people will say that. They'll say, if you don't have haters, if you don't have some opposition, you're not being big enough. Like go bigger, be more controversial, like don't be afraid. And this is what it is, like don't be afraid to share your message, whatever it is, especially if it's an unusual message, because you don't want to be repeating something that everybody said. Everybody has a unique message to deliver or a unique purpose, and it is in our uniqueness that we fulfill our purpose. But the world, again, is always trying to tell us to be a certain way. It's trying to streamline everybody, just like the not speaking thing, right? It's like obey, just be this way. But that is not, like, as you know, like most successful entrepreneurs, they become successful because they do something different. They express their uniqueness. So just keep on loving yourself and honoring yourself and finding what's unique about you and your offering. And that will be what will really lead people to you and expand your business and make you a success.
That's perfect. And I think we just need to hear that over and over and over again, because like you shared, we've heard over and over again, children should be seen and not heard. We've heard over and over again the word no. We've heard over and over and over again. And so we need to hear it and hear it and hear it and hear it. So people get braver and braver and braver and braver. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that in more of a newer generation, where they're kind of being born into a really brave time, right? Like this is a really brave time. Anyways, that'll be our second show that we bring you on with. So we're going to put everything that you can connect to Surya and her music and her program. Obviously you're going to be able to tap into that. Reach out to her directly. She just told you how. And you know what? We love to bring people like her onto our show. If you've got something that you want to share, if this is a platform for entrepreneurs and lifepreneurs, and if you don't know what a lifepreneur is, it's someone that's doing something pretty cool, jumping off the cliff, what you're doing, people need to know what it is, whether you get paid for it or don't get paid for it. And we'd love to have you on the show and invite you here, because mine and Caroline's whole dream is to create a platform where people that are as crazy as us get to go on and talk. Right? So thank you so much for being part of the show. Again, we really appreciate you listening. We appreciate you sharing. We appreciate you sending people to the show and hearing more, because we really believe that the people that come on here have something to, they're just game changers. They're just game changers, and we need that. So thank you so much for coming on. Another fantastic show. We appreciate you. And Caroline, as always, it's a pleasure coming on to the True That show with you and listening to how people, the truth of what's going on for them. And that's it. That's all I got, people. Thanks for coming on.